Why are the samurai extinct? The samurai, Japan's legendary warriors, once commanded respect and fear across the country. But today, they're a thing of the past. What caused their downfall? Was it just the end of an era? Or were there deeper, more unexpected forces at play? In this video, we'll uncover the surprising reasons behind the extinction of the samurai and take a closer look at the events that led to the disappearance of this once mighty class. The rise of the samurai. The story of the samurai starts in a feudal high-end period, around the 8th century when Japan wasn't the unified country it is today. Instead, it was a patchwork of regions ruled by powerful landowners, known as daimyo, who were constantly in competition with each other. During this time, Japan lacked a central government. The emperor in Kyoto held some influence, but his power didn't reach beyond the capital. So, these daimyo needed warriors to protect their land and maintain control over their territories. The samurai were very skilled warriors who were hired by these landowners to fight, guard, and enforce their rule. At this stage, they were mere mercenaries, focused on battle and survival, not yet the honored class we recognize today. But everything started to change during the Genpei War, which took place from 1180 to 1185. This war was a massive power struggle between two major clans, the Taira and the Minamoto, both fighting for control over Japan. The samurai proved to be key players in the conflict, with their deadly skills and unwavering loyalty tipping the balance in favor for the Minamoto clan. The war's outcome would be the turning point that elevated the samurai from mere warriors to a powerful ruling class. With the Minamoto clan's victory, the Kamakura shogunate was established, which was a military government that would rule Japan for centuries. The samurai were no longer just hired soldiers, they became the backbone of the new regime. The rise of samurai power was rooted in their loyalty, discipline, and martial prowess, all of which formed the foundation of bushido, the way of the warrior. The bushido code and the samurai's identity. As the samurai's influence grew, so did their sense of identity, deeply rooted in a code that governed every aspect of their lives. This code, known as bushido, wasn't just a set of rules, it was the very foundation of the samurai's value and actions. Bushido dictated how a samurai should live, fight, and even die. At its core, bushido emphasized loyalty, honor, courage, and self-discipline. These virtues weren't just ideals, they were essential to a samurai's existence. A samurai's loyalty was first and foremost to their daimyo, the feudal lord they served. Betraying this loyalty or even acting dishonorably could mean disgrace, and for many samurai, this was worse than death itself. Honor was another central pillar of bushido. A samurai's personal reputation and the honor of their family were things they protected above all else. If a samurai was defeated in battle or failed in their duty, they could restore their honor through seppuku, a form of ritual suicide. This was seen not as an act of cowardice, but as a brave and honorable way to preserve one's dignity and avoid the shame of defeat. Courage was just as important as loyalty and honor. Samurai were expected to face danger head-on, without fear or hesitation. This courage wasn't only physical, it was also mental and emotional. They were trained to remain calm in the face of chaos, never allowing fear or doubt to cloud their judgment. Through bushido, the samurai became a symbol of discipline and strength. Their rigid adherence to these principles shaped not just their martial skills, but also their entire way of life. To be a samurai was to embody these virtues, and for centuries, they were the ideal warrior of Japan, revered for their commitment to this code. Samurai in a changing Japan. By the 17th century, the samurai had become the backbone of Japan's society, but the world around them was beginning to change slowly. Japan entered a long period of peace under the Tokugawa shogunate from 1603 to 1867, a time when the samurai, once fierce warriors, found themselves in a very different role. No longer fighting in constant wars, many samurai transitioned into bureaucrats, administrators, or even farmers. Their role as military leaders began to fade and their frustration with the shift grew. During the Edo period, the Tokugawa shogunate maintained strict control over Japan, enforcing peace and stability across the country. For the samurai, this meant an era of relative tranquility with fewer opportunities for battle and glory. Instead of honing their combat skills, samurai were increasingly tasked with maintaining law and order, collecting taxes, and overseeing government policies. Some were even assigned to work as scholars, teachers, or advisors. This shift led to a growing sense of dissatisfaction among many samurai, who had been trained for battle but now found themselves filling out paperwork or dealing with land disputes. These former warriors, who had once lived by their swords, now found themselves carrying pens and managing land, a situation that left many feeling disconnected from their true calling. The samurai's identity was becoming blurred. Many struggled with their reduced role in society and began to question their purpose in a peaceful Japan. As the Tokugawa shogunate continued to maintain control, samurai were further marginalized, with their martial skills becoming less and less relevant in a society that valued peace and stability over warfare. This discontent would soon give rise to a new conflict, one that would challenge the very existence of the samurai as they had known it. The winds of change were blowing, and a new era of Japan was on the horizon, with forces within the country and outside setting the stage for the downfall of the samurai. The arrival of foreign threats. The uneasy peace of the Tokugawa era was soon disrupted by forces beyond Japan's borders. In 1853, Commodore Matthew Perry of the United States Navy arrived in Japan with a fleet of black ships, demanding that Japan open its ports to American trade. This marked the beginning of what would become a critical turning point in Japan's history: the arrival of Western influence and the end of Japan's long-standing isolationist policies. At the time, Japan had been closed off from the rest of the world for over 2 centuries. This period was known as Sakoku. The Tokugawa shogunate had enforced strict isolation, and the samurai class had played a central role in maintaining the status quo. However, the arrival of Perry's ships shattered this isolation and forced Japan to confront the outside world in ways it never had before. The samurai, who had long defended their country from internal threats, now found themselves faced with a much more serious external enemy. Many within Japan were divided over how to respond to this foreign threat. The ruling shogunate, led by Tokugawa Iemochi, initially sought to open the country to trade, hoping that modernization would help Japan keep up with Western powers. However, this decision was met with fierce resistance, particularly from samurai clans like Choshu and Satsuma, who viewed the presence of foreign powers as a direct insult to Japan's sovereignty and honor. These rebellious samurai, seeing their traditional way of life threatened by Western influence, began to rally against the shogunate's decision to open Japan's doors. Their loyalty to the emperor, whom they believed should have supreme authority, deepened. It was during this period of turmoil that the samurai's long-standing roles as defenders of Japan evolved. No longer just warriors of their lords, they would soon become the driving force behind a larger political revolution that would reshape the future of Japan. The winds of change were blowing stronger now, and they carried with them a powerful force: the samurai's thirst for change and honor. The fall of the shogunate. By the mid-19th century, Japan was on the brink of major change. The once powerful military dictatorship, which had ruled Japan for over 250 years, was now struggling to maintain control. In 1867, the Tokugawa shogunate officially collapsed when Tokugawa Yoshinobu, the last shogun, resigned his position in a bid to preserve peace. However, his resignation did not resolve the conflict. Instead, it set the stage for a brutal civil war, known as the Boshin War, which saw the imperial forces, backed by the Choshu and Satsuma clans, fight against the remaining loyalist forces of the shogunate. Despite the shogunate's numerical advantage, the imperial army's modern weaponry and superior tactics led to a decisive victory. By 1869, the shogunate was officially dismantled, and the Emperor Meiji was restored to power. The samurai, who had once been the backbone of Japan's military, now found themselves at the center of a rapidly changing society. The rise of the imperial government marked the beginning of the Meiji Restoration, a period of sweeping reforms that would ultimately transform Japan into a modern, industrialized nation. Yet, the samurai, proud warriors who had once ruled the land, now had to navigate a world where their traditional roles no longer held the same value. The era of samurai dominance was over. One of the first blows to the samurai came in the form of the abolition of the feudal system. Under the Tokugawa shogunate, samurai had served as retainers and local lords, the daimyo, whose lands were divided into domains. However, with the Meiji government's decision to centralize power, these domains were dissolved, and the daimyo were stripped of their land and power. With the support of their lords, samurai were left without a clear role. As their economy stability crumbled, many samurai found themselves without a livelihood. Further compounding their discontent was the introduction of conscription. In 1873, the Meiji government established a nation army through conscription, meaning that all able-bodied men were required to serve in the military. The idea of conscription was rooted in the need for a modern centralized army capable of defending Japan against foreign threats. But for the samurai, this was a direct challenge to their identity. The samurai had once been the exclusive warriors of Japan's, but now every man, regardless of class, could be trained and armed. This move undermined the samurai's unique role as the nation's military elite. The final blow came with the Hightory Edict of 1876, which made it illegal for samurai to carry swords in public. For the samurai, whose honor and identity were deeply tied to their weapons, This was seen as a humiliating loss. The sword had long been a symbol of their status, and now they were forced to abandon it. This was the ultimate symbol of the collapse of the samurai class, as it stripped away the very essence of their identity. Faced with these overwhelming changes, many samurai resisted the new order. A number of them, led by figures like Saigo Takamori, took up arms against the Meiji government, hoping to restore the samurai's former glory. However, their efforts were in vain. The most famous of these uprisings was the Satsuma Rebellion of 1877, which saw Takamori and his followers make a final stand against the imperial army. Despite their bravery, the samurai were no match for the modernized forces of the government, and the rebellion ended in defeat. The samurai were no longer needed in the new Japan. Their once proud warrior class, which had dominated the country for centuries, was gradually phased out. The Meiji Restoration had brought Japan into the modern era, but at the cost of the samurai's ancient way of life. The samurai were not just soldiers, but symbols of an older feudal Japan, one that could no longer survive in a rapidly changing world. The samurai, though they fought valiantly until the end, were left to fade into the pages of history. The samurai may be gone, but their influence on Japanese culture and history remains undeniable. From their rise as fierce warriors to their ultimate fall, they've left behind a legacy of honor, loyalty, and discipline. The world has changed, but the lessons from the samurai's way of life still resonate today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.